So 10 years ago, almost to the day, I had several traders in my office. My company, Golden Boy Promotions, built all the top PBC fighters, including Errol Spence, Deontay Wilder, the Charlo brothers, Danny Garcia, Abner Mares, Leo Santa Cruz, the list goes on. But these disloyal douches in my office waited for my fighters' contracts to expire, and they took them over to the new startup promotional company called PBC. Hundreds of millions of dollars were raised, and PBC tried to take over the entire boxing industry, and they failed miserably. All the fighters they stole from us were on track to have Hall of Fame careers, and now look at them. They fight once every 3 years. PBC ruined their careers. It is a sinking ship over there. Karma takes a long time, but it always comes around.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, members of the Roll the Tape film crew. Well, you heard it. That was Oscar De La Hoya, Hall of Fame, multi-division world champion, and promoter, CEO, and founder of Golden Boy Promotions. Well, Oscar De La Hoya said a lot of things in a very short period of time. And I wanted to dissect what Oscar De La Hoya said. And I also wanted to give a business perspective to educate each and every last one of you. But before I do that, please, if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, support the channel. You can make a contribution at any given time by clicking on the Super Thanks, Cash App, $ Manager Marty, and also live and live in color, which we will be going live. And we're going to dissect this. And I want to hear your take when I open the panel on this topic. But you don't have to wait till live. You don't have to wait until we go live. Give your feedback in the comment section below. All right, enough with the hugs, handshakes, and Valentine's Day cards. Let's get to what Oscar De La Hoya said. Oscar De La Hoya said that there were traitors in his office, meaning they worked for Golden Boy Promotions 10 years ago, because he said all of this started 10 years ago, when traitors that worked for his company in his office took a lot of professional boxers after the boxers' contracts expired with Golden Boy Promotions, after Golden Boy Promotions built up these fighters by allowing these fighters to compete under the promotional banner that gave them the publicity, the marketability, the fame, and the money that these fighters rightfully deserved by being really, really good, talented fighters. Obviously, we know who these fighters are because they were exposed to major networks, particularly HBO, to be more specific. And so these traders took these fighters over to a new startup company at the time known as Premier Boxing Champions, which we all know as PBC. We know who spearheaded PBC and who raised the funds and the capital to start and operate PBC. And he is an advisor. And his name is Al Heyman. And so these traders took these fighters that Golden Boy Promotions helped build up, give the exposure to through their network contracts that they had with HBO. And these fighters were taken over to PBC. There were a lot of names to be thrown around. Errol Spence Jr., the Charlo brothers, Danny Garcia, Abner Morris, Leo Santa Cruz, etc., etc. And so I believe that at least one of these alleged traitors that Oscar De La Hoya is referring to is Richard Schaefer. That's number one. Number two, second point I want to point out. Number two, Oscar De La Hoya said that the careers of these fighters that he mentioned were ruined by PBC. And I want to point out a few facts just behind that statement alone. Number one, well, no, A, because I said two. So 1, 2, point number one, point number two. All right, A. That's not true. The fighters that were mentioned in this shorts video by Oscar De La Hoya, their careers were not ruined. In fact, many of the fighters that he mentioned, if not all of them, well, I would say most of them, became world champions. So we got to put that in perspective. B, all of the fighters he mentioned have made more money under the PBC banner than they did when they were with Golden Boy Promotions. And C, because Oscar De La Hoya said most of these fighters, or all of the fighters, fight one time every 3 years. And that is, of course, not true. It might feel like 3 years, but that's not true that every fighter has fought once every 3 years. That's totally not true. But all of these fighters were put into a position to have longevity with their financial circumstances in a very positive way by making smart investments with their earnings. Why? Because Al Heyman, the advisor, the one who spearheaded and raised the capital and started PBC, have educated these men, have allowed these men to be exposed to his resources that will teach these young fighters how to make investments with their earnings so that they and their families can benefit financially through life after boxing. So when their careers are over, or let's say De La Hoya says they fought once every 3 years, or in between fights, right? These fighters are still able to benefit from residual income, even when they're not competing in the ring, during their careers, and even post-boxing career. And I can tell you right now, I'm from Philly. That's my hometown. And one of the fighters that he mentioned is also from my hometown and grew up the hard way from the hood. And I'm talking about the great Danny Garcia. And Danny Garcia has made a lot of great investments in his boxing career that will benefit him and his family, and has benefited him and his family outside of the ring. Not just 10 years ago, but even to this day, and other future endeavors that Danny Garcia has begun to undergo right now as we speak. And that was because and through his relationship with Al Heyman. So I wanted to make all of these points to put things in proper perspective. Now to my final point. And I have respect for Oscar De La Hoya, particularly as a fighter. But let me say this about Oscar De La Hoya. And I've learned this as a business entrepreneur and owner myself. As a hustler, if you can do it once and be successful at something, you can do it again. So the question I have for Oscar De La Hoya is, if what he is saying is true, all the things that he just said in that shorts video, then that means you should be able to replicate. That means you should be able to duplicate after you've experienced success as an entrepreneur. In other words, is simply put, if Golden Boy Promotions, with their resources, were able to build these fighters up, like he just said, Golden Boy Promotions built these fighters up before they went to PBC, well, he should have been able to do it again. Because the last time I checked, there was a time where Al Heyman and PBC and the promoters that worked under the banner of PBC, man, they had over 100 fighters at one point in time. Signed, sealed, and delivered. And so if you're able to do it once, then you're able to do it again. But we have to keep it all the way 100 and real. Golden Boy Promotions haven't done it again. I'm not criticizing De La Hoya. I'm just keeping it 100. They haven't been able to do it again. I mean, look, De La Hoya named about 5 or 6 fighters in the shorts video you just heard. Okay, well, let me ask y'all this question then. How many fighters did Golden Boy Promotions put into a position to be where the PBC fighters are? Or at least were? Because if I ask you to name 5 world champions and 5 pay-per-view stars from Golden Boy Promotions in the last 5 years, you probably can only name about 2. And if I go back and tell you 10 years, you probably be able to name 3. And 2 of them are Mexican descent. And I'm talking about Ryan Garcia, who's just started to make headwaves and headlines regarding pay-per-view status, because we know before he fought Tank Davis, he hasn't had one fight that he headlined on pay-per-view yet. That was his first one. And he'd been with Golden Boy Promotions for several years before that fight. And the other one was the great Canelo Alvarez. So I'm trying to figure out, what fighters did Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions build? And I have to leave you with this. Most of the fighters that we talking about that Golden Boy Promotions allegedly built up before they went to PBC, most of them are African-American or black. And I'm not trying to include race in this, but we got to keep it all the way 100. Name a black fighter, just one. We don't have to go back and forth, just one. Name a black fighter that Golden Boy Promotions have built up, promoted, transitioned them into a pay-per-view star and or multiple world champion, and was able to make good money in this business. Just name one. We can go back the last 10 years if you want, because that's what De La Hoya did. He went back 10 years ago for the last 10 years of what PBC have been doing. So just name one. Matter of fact, leave it in the comments section. Just name one. I'm just asking the question. I don't want to make it too complicated. Just one. Just one. And the reason why I'm bringing up just one is because within the last 10 years, there was a co-promoter, a co-partner of Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions, who is black. And I'm talking about the great Bernard Hopkins, who's also from my hometown of Philadelphia. But I'm just asking a question. That's all. I don't mean, you know what? I'm doing way too much talking. Don't take my word for it. Roll the tape.